you can see my screen, right? Just one screen. Okay. Okay, so we'll get started. It's great to be back. And thanks to all of you. Really amazing how much I missed. Okay. Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Britatuhe Namaha Vasudev Vasutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So I just introduced that one, Vasudeva Vasutam Devam. And like this, I'll introduce one more from time to time so that we get familiar with these shlokas. I did want to include Vyasa Vishala Buddhe because again, it is a recognition of the great Mahavyasa, who is the author of the Bhagavad Gita. So we started with an introduction to the 5th chapter last time. And the introduction to 5th chapter, we talked about how, the whole Bhagavad Gita is a kind of, you might say as a self-help book, It's a self-help book because it was for Arjuna. And Arjuna, who himself was such a mighty person, if he can collapse when he's faced with such a big challenge, where he suddenly snaps and he finds that he's unable to carry on his duty, it is something that can happen to any one of us, right? So it is that Arjuna disease that is really sometimes manifest in each one of us. And when we think about this Arjuna disease for Arjuna, it was not, something where he was fighting somebody in, say, Argentina or Brazil or something like that. He was actually fighting somebody of his own people, his own elders, his own grandfathers, his cousins. And the idea behind this is many times, we get stuck on this fact of, oh my God, this is my children, my house. I want to protect all of this, right? But the Indian knowledge system, the way it is, it goes far, far deeper into this disease. And this disease is not limited to the fact that these people are my people, or all these are my things, and I need to protect all of them. It is not just about that. It is actually this aspect of what exactly is this minus. What is minus? Minus means not the negative minus, but mineness, all this is my things. That is really the root cause where, we started off with the whole Bhagavad Gita. So, which is why we found second chapter, Krishna had to come and explain to Arjuna only when Arjuna absolutely surrendered to him. So he tells him about the fact, about really the purpose of life, what really is life, what really is our role. And our role is really not the superficial body, mind, intellect by which we encounter this life or the world, but actually it is beyond that. And interestingly, Swami Chinmayananda, he compares this life as like, a holiday inn. He calls this as a holiday inn. What do we mean by holiday inn? Because, we think that we have come into this world as a pleasure place, as a vacation place. We are constantly looking only for what we can get out of this world. So, but then Krishna actually is reminding Arjuna, and this is where Swami Chinmayananda says, this world is really not a holiday inn, but actually it is a hospital. It's a hospital where we have come to get rid of this disease, the Arjuna disease. And what is that disease for all of us? It is this psychological and intellectual things which are from our vasanas. Our own vasanas are the ones which make us misinterpret this life. And this misinterpretation happens because of these vasanas. And so we have actually come here to exhaust them, to exhaust and to take control of truly my identity. And this is why this life is really not a holiday inn or a pleasure place, but it is actually a hospital. It's a hospital where Lord Krishna is the doctor, and he is the doctor to whom, when we surrender ourselves as a patient, then he really gives us this medicine in the form of Bhagavad Gita. And it is this medicine which starts off in that second chapter. And then in the third chapter, we see how Krishna reminds Arjuna about really what his role is, what his responsibilities are, and that responsibility he needs to fulfill by this term called Karma Yoga. And the Karma Yoga basically is, it's just do it, just do your action. And then finally, in the fourth chapter, when he discusses a lot more about the aspect of a sannyasa, or this aspect of renouncing action. And when he comes to this aspect of renouncing action, this is where the fifth chapter starts, where Arjuna wants to know, he's again confused, because if you remember, in the third chapter, he was confused between when Krishna told Arjuna that, hey, this is who you are, this is your identity. And so he gives him that knowledge. And then he also tells him, well, you have to fight, you have to do your duty. So that was the question in the third chapter. But then in the fourth chapter, by then, Arjuna is sort of slowly waking up now, and he is recognizing there is something called this knowledge. And in this knowledge, this aspect of renunciation of action comes in. So now Arjuna's question is a little different. He recognizes that ultimately, now I know where the paths have to lead, but tell me exactly what is the difference between the two paths. The paths being the Karma Yoga which is the aspect of participation in action, which we talked about last time, and renunciation of action, which is giving up completely this aspect of action. So that's what Arjuna's question is in the beginning of this 5th chapter. And therefore, this chapter is termed as Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Karma Sannyasa Yoga, indicating how to give up even action itself. Now, of course, we might all be thinking, why is that relevant to me? I am in the Grahasthashram, I have all these duties, I have these responsibilities. But in this field also, how can I really give up my action? What is that? And that is where we see that the 5th chapter begins with this aspect of really understanding. It's the next level for us to going towards truly understanding what my identity is. Today, I'm so stuck at this body, mind, intellect level, thinking I'm Sunitha. That's the identity. At this identity, I perform a lot of my actions in the spirit of Karma Yoga, where I dedicate the results of my action to that Ishvara. So that is this aspect of Karma Yoga. But now moving on to what is Karma Sannyasa Yoga, giving up even that action itself. That's where this chapter focuses a lot upon that. So the first 5 shlokas literally takes you through this idea of what Karma Yoga is and what Karma Sannyasa Yoga is. And you see Krishna really wanting to explain this to Arjuna, because you can see, Arjuna really is asking this question of Sannyasa Yoga because he still thinks there is some hope for him. Hope for him in the sense he wants to escape. He wants to escape from the battlefield. He thinks that if he escapes from the battlefield, that is the easiest solution. He doesn't have to do any of this action. He can just escape, go to the Himalayas. But this is why you see Krishna wanting to tell him about really why Karma Sannyas versus Karma Yoga. For Arjuna, still Karma Yoga is the better one. So let's go to the shloka 1 and we will chant it. Arjuna Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Panchamodhyayaha Arjuna Uvacha Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna Punaryogam Cha Shamsasi Yachreya Etayorekam Tanme Bruhi Sunishchitam. So you see Arjuna, where Arjuna is, a very dynamic individual who is being trained in the army fair, and for him, the only way anything can make sense is if you tell him very clearly. I think he's like an engineer, right? Engineer where everything is to be very logical. And tell me exactly what you mean, Krishna. Just don't, beat around the bush for me. So tell me very clearly, is sannyasa, renunciation of actions, karmanam, is that better for me? Or yogam? Yogam, here yoga refers to karma yoga. So he says, is the yoga, karma, the yoga of action, is that good for me? You seem to praise both of them, but tell me for sure, tell me which one I should follow. Which one is good for me? Shreyaha. Which one is the most beneficial for me of the two? Etayoho of these two. Tell me which one is absolutely, sunishchitam, most assuredly, most importantly, just tell me which is the most important thing here for me. So that is Arjuna's question. So we spent a little time last time talking about what karma yoga means and karma sannyasa yoga. So karma sannyasa means renunciation, and karma action. So here we are talking about karma sannyas. So in our philosophy, we have this aspect of the 4 ashramas, right? Now, ashram itself, the word ashram means that also is a place where we are trying to improve ourselves. So even the grahastha ashram where we are is actually that state or that stage of our life where we have an opportunity to really improve ourselves. So karma sannyasa yoga. So sannyasa is that ashram where a person takes that path for improving themselves. So here actually there are 2 types of sannyasa ashram. One is called as the vividisha sannyas. Vividisha sannyas is at a young age. So you have and of course this was in the olden days, but it is practiced even now, because in Sandipani where we went, we had youngsters in the age of 20 to 30, where they were graduates. And the opportunity was there that after you finish a certain level of studies, okay, one has a choice. One can actually decide that, okay, I really don't want to participate in any of the actions which most normal people do, and focus my attention completely on just this knowledge, which will take me to my final liberation, to moksha. So that is the aspect of getting into sannyasa. Sannyasa indicating that giving up of any of the actions. Or alternatively, I can actually choose to take
I think she lost power.
Yeah, I think so. I think, Suvarna, you're good in chanting. Maybe you can lead anybody who wants to lead the 5th chapter. We can start chanting while we are waiting.
Instead of fifth, we can do fourth, I think, because fourth, she already finished. So, should we do that?
Yeah, sounds good. I'm not good in chanting, but I can just, one person can lead, whosoever is good.
Atha Chaturdyotyayah Shri Bhagavanuvacha Imam Vivashvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivashvan Manave Praha Manur Ishvagave Praveet Evam Parambara Praptam Imam Rajarsya Yovituhu Sakhale Negamagata Yogo Nashtaf Parantaba Sa Evayam Maya Detya Yoga Proktaf Puradanaha Bhakto Sime Saha Cheti Ragashyam Heta Dutthamam Arjuna Uvacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivashvataha Kadam Kada Edat Vijaniyam Tvamadau Proktavanidhi Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
She's back now.
Yeah, thank you. So we've lost power, but I'm joining in through my phone hotspot. You can see me still, right? Luckily, because I have the Zoom light, so I was able to. Great. Thank you. Thank you for chanting, Meena. That was Meena, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me share. So you can see my screen? Very good. Very good.
Yes.
So we were talking, okay. It sounds a little eerie here without any light, but so long as you can hear me and appreciate it, that your patience. So we talked about what karma sannyasa yoga is. So karma sannyasa is basically, it's the path where a person decides that they want to just, not participate in the world, and they want to give up the activities that, we all tend to do, which is, getting married, having children, having grandchildren, getting a job, all that which is connected with the grihastha ashram. That part of it, the person decides that they want to just not participate in it anymore. And so it's the karma sannyasa yoga. It's but this can of course happen even in a grihastha ashram. Even in a grihastha ashram, at some point in time, we can start to give up slowly and slowly this set of actions. So that is karma sannyasa yoga. And when compared to that, karma yoga is the aspect of just participating in every action, but then to give up the ownership for the results. Basically attributing everything to Ishvara, Ishvararpanam. And that is the two, so these are the two different paths that is the question that Arjuna is asking. So Arjuna is really asking to see if he could just give up his role, his responsibilities, and run away. And whereas Krishna is telling him, no, that cannot be, that is not, you cannot just go away just like that, because you have a duty. And that is what you see in shloka number 2, where Krishna then tries to explain to him about the two paths, about what does it really mean. So let's chant the second shloka. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasakara Bhubhau Nishreyasakara Bhubhau Tayostu karma sanyasad karma yogo vishishyate Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasa Karabhubhau Tayostu Karma Sannyasad Karma Yogo Vishishyate. So Lord Krishna is saying, of course, both sannyasa karma yogascha. Sannyasa, which is the path of giving up these actions, as well as karma, which is the yoga of action. Both of them, of course, will lead you to moksha. No question about it. Ubhav, both of them. But let me tell you, Arjuna, I know that's where you're coming from, is, ultimately, when we all ask certain questions, it is really, quote unquote, selfish. We really want to know, what does it mean for me? Tell me, what does it really mean to me? So Lord Krishna, who of course understands Arjuna here, is trying to tell him that, but Arjuna, for you, I want to recommend this particular path. And that is the aspect of karma yoga, which is the yoga of action. That is actually much more important for you. Now, if, of course, instead of Arjuna, suppose we had somebody like Nachiketa, Katha Upanishad, those who are attending Katha Upanishad, if Nachiketa had stood in front of Krishna, of course, Krishna would have said for Nachiketa, sannyas is the better one for you, right? So ultimately, it is not about the paths. It is not about the paths. It is actually about what is the path for the individual, right? Now, many times, just as a practical example, right? We tend to think that every child is really meant to go for Harvard. Let's look at this. Every child is really, we push our children. We say, okay, you have to ultimately go to Harvard or Stanford or some of the best universities. But is that really the case? Do we really think that every child can go to Harvard? And for that matter, is really Harvard the best place? We don't really ask these questions many times, right? The whole idea is ultimately to recognize each one of our own capability, our own, where are we in this path? Am I wanting to really be actively associated with doing things? Or am I the kind of person who wants to just sit back and actually study? I have this tremendous amount of what you would call this as vairagya and mumukshutvam. You can look at these two factors. Vairagya meaning that, these ultimately the outer world, the ambitions, or wanting to acquire a lot of things, wanting to really fight for a certain cause. It can be anything. I'm not really interested in any of those anymore. If that is the case, then perhaps this karma sannyas is a better path, right? And also, I really want to just ponder upon what life is all about. And in order for all this, we need to take some time off from our own lives, right? So this is exactly the question which is being asked. It's a very powerful question. It's if you look at it just from the shloka alone, where Krishna is saying, yes, there are two paths. Both the paths lead to moksha, but Arjuna, this thing for you is karma yoga is better for you. Because again, in the case of Arjuna, he was trying to run away. He was trying to run away into the Himalayas. So it's the same thing which we also sometimes have to ask ourselves. Am I? How long am I going to keep on running and running and running? Am I done with things? Now, again, the best thing about Hinduism is that we are given this choice. We have an opportunity to really recognize where we are in this life of ours and then move accordingly. But we're also given these 4 paths, from brahmacharya to grihastha to vanaprastha to sannyasa ashram. Even a grihastha have the ability to move towards sannyasa ashram. It's just that every grihasthi also has to recognize, am I done with all my responsibilities? That is one way to look at it. But the other thing which is important is, as a grihastha, the grihastha ashram is the most important ashram because it is the ashram which takes care of all the other 3 ashrams. The brahmacharya, the vanaprasthi, as well as sannyasa. It is a grihastha ashram which takes care of it. It is that ashram which takes care of prosperity, of taking care of the world in terms of the growth, development, everything. So from that point also, each one has to take that into account, and therefore Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna in this case, and for most of us, most 99% of us, actually, this karma yoga is the better path, because you don't want to hasten something. It's like this, it's like, what is it? The worm wanting to become a butterfly. You can't just make a worm a butterfly the very next day. There is a process. There's a metamorphosis, right? So too with the flower. We can't just take a bud and put it in water and think that it's going to become a flower the next day. Everything takes time. So that's the aspect between karma yoga to karma sannyasa yoga. To give up action completely, one has to be convinced that I don't need to participate in this path of action anymore, but I need to make sure that I'm ready for it. And that readiness comes only through this viveka vairagya aspect and mumukshutvam, the desire for wanting to know more. So this is why you see that Krishna advises Arjuna that you should really take up this aspect of sannyasa yoga. No, I'm sorry, not sannyasa, karma yoga, is to take this the path of action. So which now brings us to the 3rd shloka, where Krishna now wants to really explain this qualification of really who is a sannyasi. Because that is also important, it's not just he cannot brush off Arjuna and say that you're not really fit to be a sannyasi. But let me tell you really who is a sannyasi and the qualification of a sannyasi. And so let's chant the shloka 3, where he talks about the the real true qualification of a sannyasi who is a perpetual sannyasi. He calls it as a nitya sannyasi. Nitya sannyasi, somebody who is truly a sannyasi in his mind, not just in the robes, not just the external sannyasi, with a long beard and, living, trying to show that the person is leading a simple life, all that. So that's why the words have been very carefully chosen here. Nyeyasa nitya sannyasi, nyeyasa nitya sannyasi, yo na dveshti na kankshati, yo na dveshti na kankshati, nirdvandvo hi mahabaho, nirdvandvo hi mahabaho, sukham bandhat pramuchyate, sukham bandhat pramuchyate, nyeyasa nitya sannyasi, yo na dveshti na kankshati, nirdvandvo hi mahabaho, sukham bandhat pramuchyate. So he's saying that, let me tell you who is really a nitya sannyasi. Nitya sannyasi, somebody who is truly a permanent sannyasi, if you want to think about it that way. So Gneyaha, no, Saha meaning that, the pronoun for he, Saha, no, that person is really that sannyasi who has these following qualifications. So this person is Yaha, that person, na, he does not, Dvesha means hate. So a person who does not hate anybody, nor does he kankshati. Kanksha means, kanksha, expect something, or somebody who has an attachment for something, or somebody who desires something. So he's a person who neither hates anybody, nor does he expect anything from anybody. So such a person who is actually also free from any kind of opposites, any kinds. Nir again is this upasarga. It's the prefix which is added to a word to emphasize. So nir dvandvaha, who is free from dvanda. Dvandva means two. So it's a choice of two extremes. Nirdvandvaha, hi mahabaho. Again, he's trying to address Arjuna as, oh mahabaho, oh great warrior. So a sannyasi is a person who is free from the pair of opposites. Sukham bandhat pramuchate. So such a person who doesn't hate, who doesn't like anything, and who is totally free from the pair of opposites, such a person is completely cast off. He is totally free of any kind of bondage. And such a person is Sukham Bandhat Pramuchite. He attains that happiness. So such a person is really is a sannyasi. So how does he attain this happiness? How is he so happy? Because he has actually attained that complete equanimity of mind. That is the sannyasi. He is a person who is looking for happiness from within. And when he's looking for happiness from within, he has totally given up, not just, he's of course a karma yogi, because he has given up completely the renunciation to any kinds of fruits of actions. And when he has given up that renunciation to anything that he can expect, he is obviously very balanced. He doesn't have any at all. He has no kanksha, absolutely no expectation from anything. And he's free from any kind of attraction of the senses. So for him, he is, nothing really bothers him. Whether something is, hot or cold, whether it is somebody were to praise him a lot, or somebody were to say anything negative, none of these things really bothers such a person. And again, when you look at this pair of opposites, right? Pair of opposites can be so many things. Like, for example, you're just coming out of the cold weather where it is extremely cold. And here, on the other hand, it is so hot. So you can imagine, of course, now it is about 93 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, today here. But the temperature, in Delhi and other places went really, really hot. So that ability to recognize that the temperature, the weather's outside me, I'm not going to allow myself to be affected. This ability of whether I have something good to eat or something which comes to me every day without expecting on, okay, what am I going to make today? Whatever is there, I'm just going to make it and have my food. Or you can think of so many different kinds of opposites, right? Maybe I can ask you all, what can you give me as examples of pairs of opposites? apart from temperature or food or things which people, like we talked about honor or dishonor. These are standard things that Bhagavad Gita addresses, But for us, I think in this day and age, we can think of a lot more of maybe having a good car versus a not so good car, right?
Having a car versus not having any vehicle, just depending on public transportation.
Well, I don't know if that is possible in Detroit, right?
From India's, but from there, I'm looking from their angle from there.
Yes. That is very true, because as soon as Ashok and we came here, the first thing we did was, we took our driver's license, and it's been 6 months and we are now thinking, do we need a car? Because you're right, we can actually go by walk to most places. But then truly I have to think, why am I resisting a car? That also is necessary to be thought of. Am I resisting a car because things are too easy? I can just go and walk. So this is truly, we have to seriously think for our own selves, for individually, what are really the pairs of opposites that I'm facing? I mean, sometimes it could be even a thing of at work, right? At work, for example, if I'm looking for a promotion, it's not that looking for a promotion is bad. That is not the point. But the point is, if I don't get a promotion, what am I trying to learn from the situation? What is it that I can learn from here which can make me a better person? So sannyasi is that aspect of really, I look at this as a sadhana. Every pair of opposites, I need to be able to conquer them in my mind. That is the important thing. Whether it is there or not there, am I happy? If I can do that, I've truly conquered my mind. So a karma yogi, so this is the way to look at karma yogi versus karma sannyasi, karma sannyas. A karma yogi looks for happiness outside. A karma sannyasi looks for happiness inside. Okay, because a karma sannyasi has given up attachment to things outside. So is no longer looking, is constantly only, the sadhana is within herself or himself, looking to see, am I still happy? Am I equanimous? Whereas a karma yogi, when something I don't get outside, am I still happy? Okay. So a nitya sannyasi is such a person who can absolutely be happy completely, no matter how the external or internal situation changes. Such a person doesn't have any raga dvesha and is totally focusing upon the true identity, which is not this body, mind, and intellect, right? So karma sannyasi is that aspect. Okay, so let's move on to then shloka 4, where Krishna is continuing to tell Arjuna about the person who is, a karma sannyasi, for example. Such a person, how does he really look compared to a person who is an ajnani who looks at it? So let's do that. Sankhya yoga pratak balaha. Sankhya yoga pratak balaha. Pravadantina panditaha. Pravadantina panditaha. Ekamapyasthita samyak. Ekamapyasthita samyak. Ubhayor vindate phalam. Ubhayor vindate phalam. Sankhya yoga pratak balaha. Pravadanti na panditaha ekam apyastita samyak ubhayor vindate phalam. So he's saying that children, now here, balaha, the word balaha doesn't refer to really children as in young children, but he's referring to balaha as those people who are unable to really make this distinction between Sankhya. Sankhya here, the word Sankhya actually refers to the Jnana Marga path, the path of knowledge, versus Yoga, which is the path of action. So Sankhya, Yoga of knowledge, Yoga, which is Yoga of action, Pritak, meaning different. So it's only people who don't understand this distinction. They say that these are two different paths. Again, he's trying to correct Arjuna in thinking that these are not two different paths. They ekam api astitaha samyak. So he who is established in even one of these two, they ubhayoho vindate phalam. Ubayoho, in both of them. If a person understands, so wise people, on the other hand, they don't look at these two paths as something different, but they look at these paths as actually as pretty much the same thing, because they ultimately reach the same goal, which is moksha. So in that sense, they both are the same. So Sankhya, Yoga, Pritak Balaha, they are not two different paths, but Panditaha, who are wise people, compared to Balaha, who are children, they understand they both lead to the same thing. It's only that the qualification is the one which is the most important. Ultimately, they actually mean the same thing. So that's what he wanted. He again makes the comparison between the two paths. They are not very different itself. So let's move on to the shloka number 5, where he now tries to show how that the same path is reached by two of them, and how the wise people, they look at both the paths as being the same, because whether you are a nitya sannyasi, you also have to do karmas. Karma in the sense, for the karma which is done by a sannyasi is different than a grahastha karma. So let's see this one. Yat sankhya prapyate sthanam. Yat sankhya prapyate sthanam. Tad yogairapi gamyate. Tad yogairapi gamyate. Ekam sankhyam cha yogam cha. Ekam sankhyaṁ cha yogam cha yah pashyati sa pashyati. Yah pashyati sa pashyati. Yat sankhya prapyate sthanam. Tad yogairapi gamyate. Ekam sankhyaṁ cha yogam cha yah pashyati sa pashyati. So he's showing the panditaha, the word that was used in the previous shloka. So such a person recognizes that place, yat sankhyaha prapyate sthanam, that place, which is reached by the people who are focused only on knowledge. Sankhya referring to the path of knowledge. So there is something called Sankhya as a different philosophy also, but that is not what is being referred to here. Here, Sankhya refers to the path of knowledge. So, yat Sankhya prapyate sthanam, tad yogaihi api gamyate. So, people who practice karma yoga, they also reach that same place. So in that sense, ekam sankyam cha yogam cha. That is, both Sankhya and yoga, the path of action, they are nothing but the same path. And so those panditas, he says, yaha pashyati, saha pashyati. So a person who is able to recognize that both of them lead to the same one, such a person is truly a wise person. And this phrase here, which says, yaha pashyati sapashyati, is a very, very famous phrase, yaha pashyati sapashyati, indicating that only that person is truly seeing something, who is able to recognize that both the paths lead to the same goal. Only such a person is actually able to understand. So the word pashya here is very powerful in the sense it is not seeing something like the way we all see. We tend to see things superficially and we make judgment, right? But a wise person truly is able to understand and recognize things. And that is why he says, yaha pashyati, saha pashyati. That person truly sees who really sees, So a very powerful phrase here, because such a person can really understand that both the karma yoga path as well as the path of knowledge, they lead to the same thing. Now, does that mean that I can just take karma yoga and go there and somebody takes karma sannyas yoga and go there? No, that is not what he's trying to say here. What he's trying to say is that both the paths lead there. So the example that I think I've given before too is, like, for example, if you're going from Farmington Hills to Troy, you can actually take the 16-mile road, and it's called Quarton in one place, and it is called Big Beaver in another place. And it's 16-mile, Big Beaver, and Quarton. I think that's how the three names are. And but if you stay only on, say, 16-mile in Farmington, you'll never be able to go to Troy. You have to take 16-mile to Quarton and then to Big Beaver, and then you'll reach Troy, right? So, but then it is the same 16-mile road, right? So too, the word karma yoga, you have to first, go through the path of karma yoga, where you attribute the results of the action to Ishvara. And once you do that, then you attain what you call as chitta shuddhi, right? So chitta shuddhi, the purity of mind is needed. To attain purity of mind, I have to keep on doing my karma yoga. Only then I keep on cleansing this mind. And when I cleanse this mind, then what happens is I go to the next stage of upasana, where I'm able to focus my mind and concentrate on that higher self. And that takes this work called meditation, and we call this upasana. And once when I get to that state, then I'm able to really, really understand what knowledge truly means. Because ultimately what knowledge is trying to do is trying to tell me that I'm not this ego. I'm actually that highest self of mine, which is Brahman or Atman. But in order to recognize that, I have to go through this path of karma yoga, upasana yoga, and then finally lead to the aspect of jnana yoga. And even this jnana yoga is only, again, a means. So first, I have this karma yoga, which is the means, which leads me to, say, upasana yoga, which is the end. But upasana yoga itself is a means which leads me to jnana yoga. And then jnana yoga is a means to lead to moksha. So that's how we actually relate this karma yoga and the karma sannyasa yoga itself, which finally takes me to that ultimate moksha. So this is what he's trying to show in this, that it's the wise person who recognizes the relationship between all these paths. which finally leads us to the 6th shloka, where he's trying to say, Sanyasastu mahabaho, Sanyasastu mahabaho, Dukkhamaptumayo gataha, Dukkhamaptumayo gataha, Yoga yukto munir brahma, Yoga yukto munir brahma, Nachirenadhigacchati, Nachirenadhigacchati, Sanyasastu mahabaho, Dukkhamaptumayo gataha, Yoga yukto munir brahma, Nachirenadhigacchati. So he's saying, Sanyasaha tu, but, tu referring to but Sanyasaha, renunciation alone, O Mahabaho, referring to Arjuna here, Dukkham aptum ayogataha. But renunciation alone, without Karma Yoga, has unendurable hardships. He's trying to again show how this path, this is a sequential path. So you need Karma Yoga to get to renunciation. Yoga Yuktaha Munihi Brahma. The yoga harmonized contemplator to Brahman without delay, he smoothly goes. Na achirenadi gachati. The minute a person who has completely practiced Karma Yoga, for such a person to go to ultimate moksha, it happens just like that. Achirenadi gachati, without any delay at all. It happens absolutely very swiftly. So that is the idea that he's trying to get to here. We will elaborate this again a little more next week. Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you, everyone. Glad that we were able to make it in spite of the short power loss. At least now I know I can just use my hotspot to get to where we want to.
Thank you, Sunitha ji. Hari Om, everyone.
Thank you. Hari Om. Hari Om.
Thank you, Sunitha.
Thank you so much.
Hari Om.
Thank
Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om,
Thank you,
everyone.
Meenakshi, for chanting.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Thank you,
Hari
Sunitha.
Om. Hari Om, Sharda. See you.
Thank you.
Bye. Good to see you.
Yeah, very nice to hear your voice and see you.
See you too. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.